Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me? Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. Another little break.
A little break? Fuck, I think it's been like 3 weeks.
No, has it? I don't know. Well, we are back.
At least 2.
I know we keep saying we're back, but
We actually are back.
This is a hectic season. This is tough doing it.
We've had a lot of shit going on.
We've had,
let's be honest,
a cruise, a trip to Mass, a hurricane.
When we were young.
You went to Vegas for When We Were Young Fest. Horror Nights 3 or 4 nights a week.
Yeah, it's tough.
I am fucking tired.
It's not easy. Plus, I mean, like, we were kind of talking about it before we started recording. I think that during the season, it's harder to come up with things to talk about, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, like we could talk about the same house for 4 weeks in a row
weird.
or something.
Like, we don't want to do like our best picks yet because it's not over. We're going to do that again. We've had a chance to do every house multiple times, so we'll get you our final rankings at some point, but it's hard to you could just reiterate the same things over and over again, but everybody's going to the event and we're kind of just like letting people live vicariously through us if they can't come. But It is hard. So part of it's us, doing shit and missing the time to come over and actually do it. But I don't know. Finally, we're back. We're here. We're going to talk about
we got some good stuff lined up
tonight, and then hopefully get over to the event tonight for a couple hours. And
polish off the last of this event this year. So we are coming up to a close to it. So this is the last weekend
of 2022 Horror Nights 31.
Whew.
Sad.
I feel like we were just talking about like still debating if Evil Dead Rises is going to be a house. Like it's just been so.
I know. It feels like we just started talking about it.
But alas, it's coming towards the end. So tonight, we are going to take a look back at not just this year, but the previous year. We're going to talk, and I think this will be a sort of an annual thing as well. Maybe like next year, we'll do the same thing. So this year, we're going to talk HHN 30 versus HHN 31. And next year, we'll do 31 versus 32. We'll kind of have an ongoing battle of the previous year. I think is a fun way to kind of look back at it because it's we got the freshest thing in our mind still, and 30 is still pretty ingrained in us. So we're going to kind of look back through that. I don't know how in-depth we'll get because this was kind of like it's more of a back and forth conversational.
Well,
it's not a split ranking thing.
We're not solid iron vaults. Or lead vaults. I don't know. Whatever
a vault.
We're not vaults, so we don't remember every single little bit in detail of 30. I know some of you listening are, so don't get mad at us if we don't remember something specifically the way you remember it. Just correct us in the comments and call us stupid.
Yeah,
that's how it
all it
usually
takes.
works.
That's all it takes. So we'll go through. I don't know if we'll necessarily hit like food and drink, but we'll talk shows, scare zones, and houses.
Yeah.
And like I said, we don't have definitive rankings and stuff like that.
Just specifically, really quick about the food. Like we probably won't talk about it only because I don't think it's fair to compare the two because they were still trying out some of these different options last year, and then it's still kind of a work in progress. It's more of just a comparison as how we feel overall about the houses and the scare zones.
Yeah.
And just various things about the event this year. Because there has been a lot of discussion online. I've noticed, especially on Twitter, about how like a lot of people. It feels like it's very half and half this year. A lot of people feel like it's just not as cohesive an event.
Yep.
And others that are like, this is one of the best events of all time.
This is a very split.
It's very
year.
divisive.
It's very split.
And I don't mean like everyone's like yelling and fighting with each other, but I think that you have very strong opinions on both sides. So I'm interested to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So 2 things before we get started. First, I wanted to shout out Griffin Barker, right here. We got
Shout
it.
out Griffin Barker.
We got our centerpiece.
I don't know how many times we've talked to you about these things and how awesome they are. We just finally decided to pick one up.
Yep.
So
Who knows? Maybe this will become a
but
collection
you
thing.
you bought it, so
Yeah.
kind of go through.
But I love these things.
conversation.
So we met, and if you want to follow on Instagram, it's cremated_plastic. We met him at Spooky in whenever we were there. May, I think it might have been.
When we were there, it was back in June.
June it was. And we were just kind of talking back and forth. I really wanted to pick one up, and I didn't at the time. But I went to Spooky on Sunday this past weekend, and I finally picked up the little figurine setup. Maybe we'll have to try and do a different setup so that way it's a little bit more clear. But this thing is awesome. Little mini figurines of the tribute store of this year. So if you go and follow him on Instagram, again, that's cremated_plastic. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's got like the Palace Theater, the old, the tribute store with the Black Lucky Cat, all kinds of cool stuff on there. And then secondly, we're going to get into our beers before we kick off this whole discussion. So again, we are dipping into the Ivanhoe Park Brewing batch that my buddy Mitch got us. So I have Bar Hopper. This is a American Light Lager, 4.4%, and it's a 0 IBU.
That sounds like a light daddy.
Yeah, I don't think there's much flavor.
Well, you might be surprised.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily consider it less flavor, just more. It's just going to be super light.
Yeah, it's brewed with the support of local Ivanhoe Village establishments.
Oh, nice.
The Pinery, Lucky Lord, GB's Bottle Shop, the Thirsty Topher, Gnarly Barley, and Hammered Lamb. So yeah, super cool. I love the artwork on it, and I don't know. I'm ready to tap into this one.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a light beer, so I'll be curious to see
it'll be
how
interesting.
it translates.
And I've got the one you had the last episode we talked on, and it's the Tupac Porter. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. Nick kind of covered everything the last
Yeah,
time.
I had that a little while ago.
But it's just it's a porter. I'm sure it's going to be pretty solid. I just haven't had it myself before, so we'll give it a shot.
So we pour these beers out as we get ready to discuss
Beyond
30
the motor
and
oil.
31. It will be interesting because it's weird because we're doing like an anniversary year versus just a regular 31, but the 31 has a theme too, so it's cool.
And it's also there's significance to 31.
Yep.
We've kind of talked about it leading up to the event, and now that we've seen it in action and kind of seen what they did with it, I think there's something special about this year because of that. But yeah, we can kind of talk about it a little bit, why there's significance to both.
So let's see what this beer again.
And consider
Very
that last year was a delayed year too.
yeah,
Like technically this year should be 32,
yeah.
not 31, but
The way it fell. So yeah, I mean, off the nose, this beer is just light. It smells just like any other light beer I'd be drinking.
I'm sure it'll be like pretty what you're used to with the light ale type. But
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a
one
light
of those
beer.
crushable beers, like
Yeah,
if you're one
this
of those,
is your Bud Light
if you-
style beer.
right? If you're one of those people that are like, I don't drink that macro shit. I drink nothing but craft. Well, if you want a light beer to have, like
There you go.
on a weekend day when you're hanging out here in Florida
Yep.
and it's warm out, you drink one
It
of
is.
those.
It is refreshing. It is
Basically their
light.
version of it.
It has a good. It almost has like it's weird comparing like big macro bros, but it's like if like Coors Light and Bud Light had
Well, you know
a
what's
baby.
funny? And I always kind of look at those beers, and this is no shade at the brewery. So don't take this the wrong way. What I usually mean by this is like your friends that are not craft beer drinkers. They're
Yeah.
like your buddy Brad who drinks nothing but Coors Light.
The Silver Bullet.
You wanted to get him into craft beer, you could start him out with something like that and say, hey, look, there's other options, and then kind of work
Yeah.
him into other things. But I don't know.
Because you do think when you think craft beer, you're like, oh, like these crazy IPAs and porters and triples and imperials and all these like farm style
I think,
beers.
unfortunately,
they make
craft-
light beers too.
Craft beer has kind of taken on the connotation of, like you just said, like the crazy, hazy New England IPA, imperial stuff, which is heavy, thick, hard. You can't see through it, and people think that's what craft beer is. And there's so many options.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's not all forget that Sam Adams is still technically a craft beer,
Yeah.
craft brewery. They're still technically under the label of craft beer. They're not macro. They still have the little upside, the
They're a little
bottle.
independent. Yep.
They've got this little independent bottle on their bottles still. So they are still technically considered an independent craft brewery. So there are many options out there. I'm not saying that Sam Adams is the be all end all of craft beer. It isn't. It's probably one of my favorite mass distributed craft beers, but there's so many options out there for you guys to try that everyone is bound to find something they might like. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
worth trying and checking out, even if you can't do it all the time or don't do it all the time.
Yeah. So I guess to start the discussion, something that you sort of brought up too was the postponement of 30, which I think definitely built it up, the anticipation a little bit more. And I do see some people, like you said, it is a little two-sided for Twitter right now, where it's like 31 I love, 31 it's whatever, it's not as great. There is this imbalance. And I do think that after having that 2-year wait to get to 30, and then only having that 1 year back to like having 31, it almost like that anticipation doesn't necessarily, it's not fully there. Obviously, like there's people that love this event and they're ready for it, but only waiting half the time, I think, might have drawn some people away from just like being as in love with this year as they should. I don't know. I don't know if that plays a factor into anybody's like,
I think
do I
it
like
does.
it? Do I not? Well,
I think
unintentionally.
I think a lot of people. I mean, again, it's easy to look at something through rose-colored glasses because I don't think that 30 wasn't without its flaws too. Like every year is going to have flaws.
Have something. Yep.
Even though we agree that most events are awesome and they do a great job, but like every event's going to have flaws. I think, unfortunately, for this year, like you said, going up against last year where you had a year or more in between events, that really kind of made everybody yearn for it.
Yeah.
So like it's easy to look back and last year and go, oh, it was such a great event, and it was, but I feel like some people are looking at it like they don't remember that for a long time you just had to wait and wait and wait and wait and finally get a full event. I think that waiting is tough. Whereas this year it was like back to normal. We have an event again. I think the difference would be though is that this year we're finally back to a full-fledged event. No more plastic between you and the scare actors. You don't see the scares coming as you did a lot with last year's event. So there's elements of this year that obviously I think are better than last year, but I think last year it was just like, oh yes, we're finally back. We're finally back for an event, which is nice. But
yeah. So I guess what we should do, we'll start with shows, just because there's 2 of them. Let's just check this off the box. So we'll start with the Little Lagoon shows. Obviously, Ghoulish prematurely ended. So the show is still not on as of last night because of the damage sustained during the hurricane. So if people didn't get a chance to see it, I'm sorry for that. I caught it once. So I don't, because of that, I don't have the exact memory of 100% this is what happened and stuff like that.
I'm going to out myself a little bit. I haven't seen the show at all.
Well, it's and
I've never once seen it,
and you probably won't because I don't think it's going to be back up this year.
Whoops.
Yeah, but it's again, it's that's why we're starting with it. It's kind of the bottom of the barrel.
I'll let you talk about it. And then
it
I'll
was
just not give you any pointers.
It was fun.
It was
it was fun. It was a little story. It was like very old timey Halloween record songs. It didn't include the IPs, I don't believe, and stuff like that. It was just kind of their own story, like a Halloween story, which was pretty cool. In comparison to the Marathon of Mayhem Carnage Factory last year, which was trying to piggyback off of the 29's Marathon of Mayhem, it didn't necessarily live up to the hype. So I'm glad that they did pivot from that of like, oh, we'll just keep Marathon of Mayhem rolling. Like, there might be a better way to do this.
I'm happy they tried something different. It means going forward they'll try to do different things, I think.
I hope they do.
I am bummed. I wanted to see it because I wasn't super thrilled by the one in 20 in HHN 30. So I wanted to see this one, and I'm really hoping that they get it back up before the end of the weekend so we can at least see it once. But if they can't and we don't, then I'll have to watch a
A video,
YouTube
yeah, I'm
of
sure.
it.
It's one of those things where if you miss it, you miss it. You know, I think some people love this stuff.
Yeah,
I, for one, am
I
not
think there are people out
in
there
that boat.
that may look at us and go, well, "You guys are crazy. These are usually really good," and I don't blame you. Like, I get it. Like, it's good to have some variety at these events. You know, not everybody is just a straight up house hound like we are.
Yeah.
So I get it. I just I'm not bummed out that I didn't get to see it. I'm more bummed out because I was talking it up, thinking that this might be actually pretty good.
Yep.
And I never got a chance to actually see it.
It was good. I did enjoy it. I mean, I guess just to cut to the chase, I would definitely give the nod towards 31 with Ghoulish over Carnage Factory, just because I honestly think Carnage Factory was not good.
Yeah, it was boring.
It was just
Really
like,
boring. It was just video clips.
here's
of
some Leatherface,
IPs
here's
and
the
stuff.
IPs, this is that, and it just didn't feel like it had any thought or
There-
soul. It was just kind of imagery.
There was no. It felt like there was no reason for anybody to like wait for it. Like, we have to be back at the Lagoon for the Lagoon show. Like, there
Yeah.
was no reason
No.
to do that. Like, if you happen to be at the Lagoon show when it started,
Be like, oh, okay, well,
let's
I'll
stop,
drop off
grab,
and-
grab a beer and watch it.
Yeah.
Sure. But there was no reason to like stop what you're doing or not wait for a house.
Yeah, no.
So that's part of why I didn't like it, because it didn't really give me any warm fuzzies inside to say, hey,
No.
you should go see this.
Yeah, no. So I'd give the nod to 31 there. Now, the other shows, and this is fun to compare because they are both the Fear Factor stage shows. At 30, we got Halloween Nightmare Fuel. And then 31, we have Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire.
Yep.
So shows both have similarities, and they both do have some differences. Some new players in both shows, some familiar faces in both shows. I think 30 like really just blew me away because I had no expectations. I had expectations; they were very low because I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Halloween Nightmare Fuel!" Like, it just sounded so
The
stupid.
name sounded goofy.
I-
It's like a lot of bands where you hear the
Yeah.
band name, you're like, these guys sound cheesy as
Yeah.
fuck, but then they end up being like really, really good.
Yeah, it's like we're the metal gods, and it's like, sure, okay. But I was pleasantly surprised. It ended up being probably one of my most surprising, one of my favorite aspects of 30, and I was just so blown
Yeah.
away at the just what we actually received. It was so different. It was so out of left field. I was not expecting that. And then 31 kind of comes back, and it has a distinct similarities. It's pretty similar in story. The guy comes out, they do the little bed trick again. It's the clock ticking, the nightmare's coming, blah blah blah. And then they did change some other people around, some characters. There are some new. The bed guillotine thing is a new thing. I forget the name, but the guy or the people that dance in like the linens and stuff, and they roll down.
Yeah.
They swap the individuals out for that. A couple new dances. So there are definitely some differences, but there are absolutely some similarities too. So I think when people say it's the same show, I think that's not giving the show this year enough credit. Because yes, there are similarities, but it's I would very much say it's not
Yeah.
the same show.
I think a lot of people, they say that, but then they're the same people that, they would have been totally fine with Bill and Ted every single
Yeah,
year,
well,
every
exactly,
year,
exactly.
without ever changing.
And they'll say that's a different show, but sure. For me personally, I think I give 30 the edge.
I think it's hard to compare them.
The original, it's tough. What I do like, what I missed, I do miss the two fire guys from last year that would like spray the fire
Yeah,
out, and they had the
fire
big
breathers.
like barrels and stuff like that. So obviously we don't have them. Then this year we have, and I don't know the names, but the guy that's in the little wheel, and he like rolls around, and they do the like spin me around song
Yeah.
or whatever. So there are like a couple different things. I could build like my ideal thing, my ideal show, and I would take stuff from 31 and put it over 30.
Yeah.
But I think as an overall,
I think it's easier right now to give the original the edge.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously this is a reimagining of the first show last year. So, who knows? I would hope that going forward they try to do different things, but if they continue with this for the next couple of seasons, then I think, you might be able to compare later seasons to this to the first couple. But
Yep.
I think right now, I think the edge has to go to the first one.
yeah, and I still love the show. I'm gonna do my best to be at the last showing on the last night, because I remember last year it was just like an eye-opening experience. It was just so fun because it was like fans of that show throughout the entire run of the event filled the stadium on that last showing. I doubt very much, unless you have a one-day pass for Halloween night, I doubt very much people in the stadium for that showing, it's their first time seeing it.
Right.
So that I'm looking forward to very much. The dancers do a fantastic job. The Fire Girls are amazing. And it's just a fun time to like kill some time if everything is pretty overloaded at wait times. I love going in there.
I agree.
So for shows overall, it's fairly split. Like I said, I think I would do 30 Nightmare Fuel and then 31's Ghoulish.
I would agree with you. I
So-
don't have any arguments there.
Let's get into scare zones. I guess for now, what we'll do is we'll compare these location by location and then like an overall what we feel.
Yeah.
So I'm just going off a list here.
we can
'cause-
just we almost can do these just like shooter style. Just do them quick. Like don't spend too much time on each individual.
No,
one, 'cause
yeah.
We'll do the awards and stuff. But
yeah.
But just gonna give our overall feel which had better streets.
Yeah. So Crypt TV was in San Francisco at
Yep.
30, and this year is Conjure the Dark.
I prefer Conjure the Dark.
I think Conjure the Dark takes it.
Straight up.
And it is tough because with these
It's not
scare
close
zones,
for
we
me.
did have those limitations.
And I think I give 30 that.
Yeah.
I would definitely give 30 that, but I mean, regardless, for me, Conjure the Dark completely blew away my expectations. I didn't
Yeah.
think much of it, but then I got there, saw the little mini show that happens.
Yeah.
The actors do an awesome job. Whoever plays that girl with the red hair, she does a really,
yeah.
really good job. So shout out to you if you listen to us. But yeah, Conjure the Dark blows away.
The setup of it is much better. It's not a big clusterfuck.
Yeah. I think it would have been
The
closer.
stage is pushed back, so it gives that little
Right, it feels
feel.
it feels open. It's not as bottlenecked as it was last year. I think if last year they had kind of picked one property or one character
yeah.
from Crypt TV,
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe they could have done a little bit more with it. But being the way it was, I just don't think it was much of a scare zone. And this year it is.
Yeah, so I give Conjure the Dark there. Up at Plaza of the Stars at 30 was 30 Years, 30 Fears. This year is Horrors of Halloween.
Yep.
Now, I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with this area. I feel like this scare zone, as of late, has just been a complete throwaway.
It's not much of a scare zone.
It's always just like characters from the other scare zones. Like, it's just like a...
Well, I think it's been like that the whole time.
Yeah, it's...
But I feel like it's too dark for
Yeah.
one. It's hard to
Oh,
really,
it's very dark,
It's hard to
yeah.
understand what's kind of going on. Like, I think it's clever what they did with the pumpkins. Kind of fits the whole Pumpkin Lord thing, but I feel like Pumpkin Lord is so. I'm kind of bummed. I feel like they could have
Yeah.
done more with him.
Yeah,
Obviously,
made it
it's
more
hard.
his zone.
Right, make it more his own, or push him further back. So actually, like you have to go ahead and go through it to see him. But
Yeah.
him being right up front like that, I think it's easier if people just kind of see him and then cut to the right.
Yeah, I
There's
wish...
there's no real reason to go through it.
Yeah, I just wish that scare zone was like Pumpkin Lord. I mean, you have the Pumpkin Lord, you have the pumpkins. I don't need these random characters that don't fit necessarily in what that zone could have been. Like, because you got the little girl with like the black cat mask that's from Sweets in there.
Correct,
You got
yeah.
Scarecrow on stilts. You've got some, like, you just have various characters
Yeah.
from the, and I'm like, I don't. It should have been like little just pumpkin goblins.
To be honest with
and
you,
just a pumpkin lord zone.
we're
not
gonna
a thing like that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the sweet scare zone, but I almost feel like that should have been the horrors of Halloween.
Yeah.
Like you have such a good name. It's simple, but it is a good name, and you have Pumpkin Lord. There's so many things you could have done better with it, and I feel like they just kind of, like you said, just kind of put it there and said, "Meh, we'll just move scary actors here as we see fit."
Because it feels like there's really 4 scare
just- it
zones, and
feels-
this one's just like a. They try to do it a preemptive best of, I guess.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I don't really quite remember much of last year's either.
It was so
So it doesn't say much about last year.
Yeah, no,
either.
they had little stages with
Right, okay,
again
yeah,
characters
yeah.
from other
Yes.
zones, but they had the big 30 Years, 30 Fears billboard,
Right.
like the lights and stuff like
Right.
that. And just on the fact, I'm gonna give it to 30.
I would too.
just because they had less theming and they just kind of did what they normally do, whereas this one they had a theming. They had, the pumpkin lore on the logo, and I was like, oh cool, finally like an actual 5th scare zone that's not just pieces of other
Yeah.
pieces of the event. And it got bobbled, and it's bad that the zone with Pumpkin Lord is getting beat out by a billboard of Jack, but
It sucks.
For me,
It sucks.
I think
because
it just
Pumpkin
does.
Lord is one of my favorite characters since I've been doing this event. And I think they didn't do much with him. I think just having him there and with a few recorded phrases.
It's almost a
phrases-
joke. He just like burps and farts up
Yeah,
there. I'm
and-
like,
and
come
I-
on, dude.
I know, and I
Kinda-
feel like that almost ruins it a little bit for me. Now that you bring that up, like,
Yeah.
yeah, the whole farting thing, I'm like, okay, funny, haha. But like, man, it's Pumpkin Lord. He is
Yeah.
one of the best houses in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'll fight anybody that argues with
Yeah.
me about that. I won't really fight you. I
will verbally.
We'll verbally assault each other about why we're wrong. But no, I mean, I feel like there's so much more you could have done with him. I mean, shit, I would have just given us another house
Yeah.
if that's how you were gonna treat Pumpkin
Yeah.
Lord.
Yep.
Like, and I get it. He's a photo op. He's an opportunity for people to like show up and be like,
Yep.
"Hey, it's Pumpkin Lord, yeah,
Which is-
Pumpkin Lord, fuck yeah!" Like, it's a reason for that, but do build more up around him,
Yeah. Just make it a Pumpkin Lord zone. That's all.
Really?
All I needed. Didn't need to do
or
much.
even just connect it to Sweets
Yeah.
as like an extension of it.
Yeah. Didn't need to do much with it,
You
but
didn't have to at all.
So let's move over to where we're talking. So New York, at 30 it was Seek and Destroy, 31 Sweet's Revenge.
This is pretty easy, I think, for both of us too.
Yeah, I think so too. Although I did really like I would like to have seen Seek and Destroy on that non-COVID year, because I think the costuming would have been different a little bit. It wouldn't have been all 100% the same people with these like hockey style masks on. I really liked the theming of Seek and Destroy. The helicopter sounds were really cool. The takeover. I think what Sweets does that Seek and Destroy could have done on a different year maybe was, how Sweets has the floats.
Yeah.
I would picture bigger, different structures. They had some structures, but they were very much built to have a character distanced away from certain people.
I think, yeah, I think where you're going with this is that every scare zone last year was kind of at the mercy of.
I'm trying to like
COVID.
bridge I'm trying to make it a little bit more
But
of a fair fight.
Saying that though, I think that with Seek and Destroy, there was an opportunity to do more with it,
Yeah.
and still keep your scare actors. I mean, they were all wearing masks, so you could wear a mask underneath it, and you could do more with it. I think
Yeah.
there was a lot of props kind of set up, but there
Yeah.
really wasn't a lot to draw you in.
Yeah, no.
They didn't do anything with the controller, as far as
No, that one was a little,
and it's like
again, it felt a little fumbled.
yeah, I think there were things you could have done with it, and they didn't really do.
Yeah,
what
but
I was thinking.
I
But
did really enjoy Seek and Destroy.
I did. I mean, it was probably the best scare zone of. Well, let me think about that. Was it the best scare zone of that year? If not, it was a close second. It was one of the better scare zones. Again, it benefits from having one of the two best scare zone areas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can't touch Sweets.
No.
I don't think it can touch Sweets with
No,
with anything.
Sweets is just it's just fun. The music is great. The floats are awesome, and there's like definitive characters, and you get a story. The story comes out from just seeing
Yeah.
that. You know what's happening. You got Major Sweets walking around laughing like a good old guy. Nothing's wrong. And you got the parents and grandparents. Shout out to Grandpa, being chased by these children that are just
Yeah.
taken over by this candy. So I give the nod right there to Sweets. Central Park, 30 we had Gorewood Forest.
Right. That's what that
31
was.
we have Scarecrow, Cursed Soil. So, I mean, this zone is a dark zone. Last year we had the big entrance out front with the Terror Queen doing like a little voiced over ritual. You had like the little knuckle grunts in there.
Yep.
It was fun, but again, this one I felt like we got the Terror Queen back. Like that could have been a cool house. I felt like there was just a lot lost on the Terror Queen.
Yeah.
And it ended up just being like a fun zone versus like what could have been like an amazing zone. And Scarecrow, I think it's fun, but again, it's sort of just like not pushing the story more.
I think it's just a nod to the house. That's
Yeah.
really all it was.
Yep.
Or it was meant to be. I might have the surprising take and think that Gorewood was better.
Yeah.
I think I actually preferred Gorewood a little bit more than Scarecrow. And that's no, I mean, again, don't take that as I'm attacking Scarecrow, the house, the characters, that sort of thing. I'm not. I just think that at least Gorewood, I preferred the scare actors a little bit more. I liked their get-ups. I liked their costumes.
Yeah.
I liked the little claw-looking dudes.
Yep.
Kind of
Like
like
little crab
Hydralisks
people.
from StarCraft for any
Yeah.
gamers out there. I think there was more to it. It was more original.
Yep.
Obviously, because it's, Universal's Terror Apprentice, like
Yeah.
their story. But I think there's a little bit more original than just walking scary scarecrows.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give the nod to Scarecrow because I do like the evolution of some of the characters, and I do like that at least in this zone the characters do differ. You got the pig, you got the raven
Right,
guy,
yeah.
you got the wolves, you got a couple of the corn guys. So I do
Yeah.
like that there isn't really much repeat in there.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it blows me away either. I think it gets the I'll give it the check mark on 31 for this one.
Yeah.
But not necessarily by a large margin. I do wish the barn had a top on it. I think that would have really
Yeah.
it might not have done a lot for other people, but I think for me it would have felt really
It
cool.
would have
Like
felt a little.
we talked
more
about how the
enclosed.
whole is this an extra store to house? Doesn't
Yeah.
feel like that at all.
It doesn't. It just feels like another scare zone.
Yeah. So moving all the way now to Hollywood. Last year was Lights, Camera, Haction, Eddie's Revenge, and this year it is why can't I think of the name right now? Graveyard Deadly Unrest. It was right on the tip of my tongue. I love this zone. This zone is a front runner for me for this year. I think the characters in this zone kill it. I think the lighting in this area, and we talked about how a couple of the zones are dark. This is perfectly lit. The lightning effects. There's multiple scares in this, multiple boo holes, such different characters. I love this zone. This is one of my most fun zones. Usually, like when I go in, generally of years past, I'd go through Plaza of the Stars, go straight up there. Now I'm more apt to take that right and go through Hollywood.
Yeah, and I think this, for me, everyone knows listening to the episodes leading up to the event. I was the least hyped in this scare zone.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't expect much from it. It's classic. It's very they don't do anything new with it.
No.
But I think saying that, they do a great job with it. I think it's really atmospheric. The lighting works great outside of maybe the store with the bright lights that kind of
Yeah, that's the one.
peer in on
Yeah.
that. But other than that, the scare actors are great. The costumes look really good. I'm partial to the ghosts with the glowing eyes. I think those are really cool. But yeah, this might be the second best scare zone of this year.
Yep.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm more apt to just cut right and go that way and kind of meet in the middle, grab a drink at the weekend bar, rather than going through the first scare zone you're supposed to go through.
Yep.
And then kind of mingle your way around through suites. I actually prefer going to the right side. So yes, I think this one is actually surprisingly done well.
Yeah. This one surprised me a lot. Lights, Camera, Action.
I wasn't a fan of that one either.
Yeah,
so.
it was fun seeing some scare zones of the
Yeah.
past.
We've talked about
But
it.
I don't think it needed to be Eddie's. But if that's what it takes to get me a Dead Man's Pier House, I'll fucking take that scare zone all
and,
day.
and I agree with you there. I think it was an excuse to have Eddie at the event.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. And again, for people like you who have experienced a lot more events than I have,
Yeah.
you got more out of that. For me, it was like I haven't done any of these.
Yeah, you
houses,
just see him
so
like
I really
and it's a
don't
little
know.
4x4 stand.
Right.
It's
You don't
just-
get the same experience. You
no.
it's just to go, hey, I remember that character.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool, but it's just not gonna win with me. And I
No.
think that this year it blows it away.
Yeah.
Completely blows away last year.
Yeah. So let's get into the houses. Now, some locations did change, so I'll kind of try to group them. We'll talk in like little groups
Probably can just yeah. I mean,
instead of going
it's
down
hard
the
to
whole
compare
list.
houses because they're all kind of like different.
Yeah, it really comes down to preferential treatment. So let's just start. We'll just start in the back. Those sprung tent areas. So the sprung tent areas last year we had Puppet Theater, Captive Audience. We had Wicked Growth.
Yep.
And then we also, I'll throw in, Scary Ohio Horror in the Heartland.
Bughouse is back there too.
Because yes, well, those are from 30.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
So those are the three in that area from 30,
You're right. Sorry.
and then 31 we have Descends of Destruction,
Yep.
and Bugs Eaten
And Bug
Alive.
House, yep.
So one less because Scary was in that MIB
Scary
tent
wasn't
area,
there.
but
well, we can always put Scary and Blumhouse together
yeah, true. All right,
because
so we'll
that's
do with
kind of
those
what
two.
Blumhouse.
We'll put that
is.
on. So Puppet Theater and Wicked Growth
Mm-hmm.
this year. Descendants and Bugs.
We kind of do it like area of the park. Almost.
Yeah. We'll do it that way, just so that way it's a little bit different. So that way in our
Yeah.
award show, our
Well,
rankings, it'll vary.
We can
a little
start
bit.
this by saying we all know how Seamus feels about the
About the
Bug
Bug
House. So if we're just comparing those two to last year's, I think 30 wins handily.
I think
don't-
so, too.
I don't think that.
And that's no shame. Bugs is a fun house. It is very fun.
I hate Bugs.
for me. But it is schlocky. It's goofy.
Yeah.
Which is fine having one of those, and I'm fine with having one there. Descendants of Destruction has grown on me tremendously.
Descendants is potentially a dark horse for best house.
It's-
it probably won't be, but it is so surprisingly done well, and the amount of work that they put in to build it,
Yeah.
I got to give them props for that specifically. But if you're comparing Pumpkin, Wicked Growth, and
Puppet Theater. Which, I mean, Puppet Theater was like close for me for taking
yeah,
one.
Puppet Theater could have easily been best house last year.
I loved Puppet Theater and Wicked Growth. I think it goes without saying.
Right.
Is,
Yeah, Wicked Growth
it
is
is what
Wicked
it
Growth.
is. But that 1-2 punch right there in that back was
Yeah, I mean,
just
it
unbeatable. I
it
think.
gave you a reason to start there.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, because
Yeah.
you had those two, and then of course Scary to the left side. But I think just starting with those two houses by those bathrooms, you had a reason to say we're gonna start in the back because those two houses were just so good.
Yeah.
This year it's like it's been a struggle for me to do Descendants because I just have had no reason to go back there.
It feels like it's left alone.
It feels like it's kind of out of the way, and again, like no shade about anyone that likes bugs. I get it. It's a fun house for what it is.
Yeah.
I hate it because I have a bug phobia. But beyond that, like it's kind of cheesy in the sense that like it's just a bunch of like plastic bugs you can get on like some
yeah.
like joke website.
Yeah.
and screw it into the
Oriental
wall.
trading.
Yeah, so it's not like something that even if I wasn't like terribly afraid of, like the only reason I won't go through it is because I get sick to my stomach. Like
Yeah.
bugs, I have an issue. Okay, guys, give me a break. But no, I just don't think there's any reason for me personally to go back there.
Yeah.
and it sucks because I want to do Descendants more. I've only done it 3 times.
Yeah.
I would love. I mean, if we go tonight, which I plan on, I'm probably gonna go back there and do that one again. If the weights,
I'd like to
aren't
check that one
insane.
off the list again.
Yeah, because I think that it doesn't get enough love because I think it's less reason for people to go back there.
Yeah.
Especially with the third house not being there anymore.
Yeah, this event is very at 31 is very front heavy
Right.
this
So
year.
so I think us saying that 30 in that area is better is just solely based on the fact that Pumpkin and Puppet were just so amazingly
it's
well
tough to
done.
compete with that.
It's hard to compete against those two.
So since we talked about Scary, we'll pair those two up. We'll do Scary,
Scary
and then
Blumhouse.
Blumhouse since they're both in
Yeah,
like
it makes sense.
newer-ish. They didn't have
Yeah.
comparable things. So Scary Heart of the Heartland was a very fun house. But what I think I'm liking it more now than when I did go through it because I remember some of the stuff that I had problems with. Was that it was definitely more of like that best of versus the cohesive story. It was a jump around.
It was
like,
a compilation of all the best events.
here's
of
Meaty
Scary.
Meats, here's Schoolhouse, here's
Right.
it's so it didn't really feel like I think, but I really do miss seeing some of those characters.
Yeah.
So that Cary, Ohio lore was great as an anniversary year. It is something that looking back now I do miss. I do miss that lore. I would like to have, hopefully, a house next year does take place in Cary in some
Yeah, my
aspect.
guess is they'll bring back Carrie at some point. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm surprised there wasn't something based in Carrie.
Yeah.
Well, it'll come to find out that
Pumpkin Lords from Cary.
or Sweets
Yeah.
happens to be based or happens to be headquartered in.
I'm sure. I mean, there might be backstory on that I just don't know, and we're
but
missing it. But
yeah, we could just be stupid and not do our research. I
Yeah.
mean, you never know.
But we have Horrors of Blumhouse, Volume 3.
Yep.
Freaky and the Black Phone.
Yep.
Very surprised at this house.
Yeah, I was definitely taken by surprise how well I like it.
Yep.
I was worried about the Black Phone being a house. And to be honest with you, if we're comparing the two, I think it's close. It's really close. Mm-hmm. But I would give the edge to Black Phone and Freaky.
Yeah. This one, I'll just say this one's a stalemate for me.
Okay. Yeah, and it's pretty close. I mean, I would say it's close.
I think if Freaky was stronger, I could give it to them. Freaky was a very fun aspect. The whole aspect of having like two houses just fucking mind blowing still to me. Like when I still remember
when you come out of Freaky,
opening
you think
night,
it's over.
Yeah, when I came out opening night, and I'm like, Freaky, we get out, and then it's like a whole new facade.
And you
I
just
was
walk
like,
right
oh
into Black
fuck,
Phone.
this
You're
is
like, oh shit, let's
awesome.
go.
This is like a buy one get one that I only was planning on buying one.
Me, I think. And again, this is crazy to say because leading up to the event and the hype and everything, I was
down on
so
it.
down on it because I'm like, how are they gonna make Black Phone work as a house?
Yeah.
How are they gonna do it? And it's the best part of the house.
Yep.
Like you walk into that Black Phone, I love how dark it is. I love how just
It's
dark,
probably the scarier ones of this year.
and creepy, and you feel uneasy the entire time. And it's one of those houses where you know the scares are coming, you know they're gonna be there, and it gets you every single time. There are a couple grabbers within that section of the house that get me every single time I go through it, every single time, and I know it's gonna be there. I know it's coming.
Yep.
But it's done so well. It's so atmospheric, and it's so dark in there that it just works.
Yep.
And it's hilarious. I was so down on it, and I'm like, I don't think it's gonna be good. And I'm glad to be wrong. I really am.
Yep.
I think it's such a good house, and I think it's close. But I would give this one the edge over Scary by a little bit.
Yeah, I think the fear and the ingenuity of Blumhouse versus like the nostalgia factor a year removed
Of all
from
the Carrie
it.
stuff, yeah.
And I love that facade too. That's one thing that we didn't get a lot of this year is like those big exterior facades.
Yeah.
But that I remember just when they were putting the billboard up outside, and I'm sneaking over during COVID era. I'm sneaking
pictures of
over
it.
into the Fear Factor area because like it was like no rules. There was nobody in there.
There's no rules.
I walked into the Fear Factor like because there was no show then. There was no way. I walked into the empty Fear Factor stage. I went up the stairs. And nobody was there to say anything. No one cared. It was like a smoking area at the time. So like I was up on top looking down. I was like, oh, I can't fucking wait.
And I think that's why they moved the house. I think part of it was because they don't want people seeing it.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
But so for me, I'll stalemate those two. Let's jump over to the two parade warehouses. Okay. So last at 30, it was Beetlejuice.
Yep.
And then the other one was The Haunting of Hill House.
Yep.
Now this year at the parade house where Beetlejuice is Universal Monsters Legends Collide.
The Weekend.
And then where Haunting of Hill House is The Weekend. So this is fun because this
is a fun comparison. It really is. Now I know a lot of people probably again
pretty much 4 IPs. I mean, 3.5 IPs because monsters.
IPs.
But
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are gonna, I know you all already hate me because I like the Weekend House so much, and I know you guys don't like it. You all fucking hate it. All right, it's fine.
I think a lot of people like it.
I think
honestly
so too.
do.
I think it's just trolls on Twitter who don't like it.
And I would wager money that half of them have not gone through it still.
Yeah, I'm sure they've only done it once or didn't do it at all because they just refused to do it, and they still saying it sucks, but they don't know what it's like.
So let's just discuss the ones from 30 quickly. Beetlejuice, sort of a letdown.
Really?
I was a little let down
so
on
I think
it.
we're different. So I think you were more hyped on it than I was.
I was expecting.
So you had higher expectations. I had lower expectations.
Yeah.
I think my expectations were met and exceeded.
Yeah.
Yours may not have been met.
Yeah. I just felt it was.
It felt empty.
It felt empty,
A little
but it
bit.
just felt like a walk. It felt like a movie set walkthrough versus like a Beetlejuice
I
house.
will concede that. Yeah, I think that it kind of felt like there's not a lot going on in here. It feels like we're kind of just walking through the movie, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes it works. Obviously, look at Blumhouse. Like this year's Blumhouse, it works. That year it didn't, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, both on and off the podcast. That like the scene with the dinner.
Yeah,
like,
it was just missing.
Felt like there was
it
just missing something there. Like I think there was supposed to be scare actors in there, but because they couldn't put plastic up, or it would be too obvious. It feels missing. It feels like there's less. It feels like there should be more than there was.
Yeah.
I feel like the Beetlejuice at the very beginning, a pie was there just because of the fact we couldn't have anybody close to us.
Yeah.
So it gave him a reason to put someone up on a platform and use a microphone and talk. Hey, baby, how you doing? Oh.
Yeah.
I think that kind of gave them a reason to do that, but it did feel a little empty. But at the same time, for my opinion is that I think that I was expecting it to be more like that.
Yep.
And it still felt. It felt more like I was actually in the movie.
Yeah.
It's weird to say. There's a difference between like feeling like you're in the movie or feeling like you're on like a backstage tour.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference there. I think you're more on the tour side. I'm more on the feeling like it's in a movie.
Yeah. Which carrying that same conversation over to the
Because
other
I'm
warehouse
not a huge
now.
Beetlejuice fan.
Yeah.
We all know this, and I know Jess over at 365 is not happy with me because I'm not a Beetlejuice fan. I'm sorry, but never a movie that I'm dying to see every year
Yeah.
at Halloween. I might watch it if it's on or if somebody
Yeah.
happens to be playing it at a party or something.
Like
Not
a
wild
seek it
about
out, yeah.
Not wild about it, but the house was good. I think the house
Yep.
was definitely good.
So now carrying the conversation over to
This is the interesting part of the conversation.
the Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
Whereas similar thing where we're kind of walking through the series, but it felt for me more of a house.
For sure. And I think part of it was because of the fact that the set pieces in that are a lot better
Yeah.
than what they could pull off in Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm.
There's more iconic. It was fresh in our minds because
Yeah.
the show had come out like a year prior or over the COVID year. It had come out, I think, or the year before COVID or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what year it came out, but I think that it felt more serious. It felt like it was being taken a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
Obviously, Beetlejuice is hard to take serious because it's Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it felt more like being in the show than
Yeah.
Beetlejuice did.
I mean, and talking about like facades from
Well,
Scary,
yeah,
but talk
that
about this
facade was
interior
awesome.
facade where it's just that
Probably the best facade
walking
of the
into
year.
the whole house. It's just I just felt like that was just beautiful. It was very similar to like my opinions on Dead Man's Pier, where it was like I think Hill House is scarier, but it had that beautiful aspect. It was just the elegant house,
Yeah.
and then bam,
lot
kill,
of
bam, kill.
lot of cool tricks.
Yeah,
with
the triple drop. With
yeah,
Mel.
with the Bent Nick lady and a lot of the stuff they use in Pier right now.
Yep.
They used a lot of that stuff in Hill House, and I think it worked really well for the story to be told. One of those things where like you didn't have to watch the show necessarily to get what was going on.
Correct. Yeah.
Either. I think that it was easy to understand what was going on when you walked through the house.
Yep.
Obviously, you should watch the show. I mean, I'm sure most people have already at this point, but yeah. So I think what makes this a hard comparison is that the properties are obviously very different.
Yeah. Dark and
Compared to
tone for
30 and
one.
31.
Yeah.
And yes, very much different between those two houses and 30. Beetlejuice and Hill House, very different, very different properties, completely different properties. And I feel like they have to be a little bit closer with Netflix stuff. They need to be a little bit more careful with what they put in a Netflix house compared to like a Beetlejuice house, where do you think the studio really gives a shit how close the house is to the movie?
I think they were very with Beetlejuice. I think
think
they
so?
were hands. Yeah, I do. So now let's jump over to the 31 one. So we got Universal Monsters Legends Collide, where Beetlejuice was. A house that you were not super high on
And I'm still
because
not
of
super
source
high on it.
material. I was similar to you. I had it a little bit higher. But my love for this house continues to grow.
And I'm surprised.
I am too.
I really am.
I am too. And I've preached from the soapbox about stories, and I want to understand the story. And going through this house, I still don't understand the story. I know the story, but it doesn't translate through when I'm
Yeah.
walking through. But what's really saving this house for me is the actors in this house. They're, for me, I've gone through
they're-
a lot of runs, and they're bananas.
They're probably the only reason this house works.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it like that. Like they put a lot of work in the props and in the dress up and making it look cool and making effects happen. But the scare actors are the only reason to experience this house.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Going through like the tunnels and like the amount of like tricks that they pull out. They have the triple boo hole scare. They got that one room where the other night I went through, I did get the trifecta. I got the Dracula flying in. I got the Wolfman from one side. I got the Mummy from the other side. And it felt like I was walking into a fight.
And that's great when it works.
Exactly.
When
and
it works out for
it's just,
you.
It's tough when you have something that amazing that not everyone gets to experience. It's tough to sell.
So
them on that.
Again, everyone knows my feelings on monsters. We're not going to get into that. I have a very hard time accepting a house where you really need to go on a lights on tour to understand not just the story but how the effects work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you have to know the effects and this, that, and the other thing. But what I mean by that is like all the mirror tricks that they have in this house.
Yeah.
Like you're never gonna know that.
Yeah. No.
You're never gonna appreciate that unless you go on a tour.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not just that. Like, and I don't mean like. I'm trying to articulate this the right way. The scare doesn't. I don't think it's any more effective than just having a boo hole.
Yeah.
In those places, like, oh, he can get you here because he's in a mirror, but then he comes around the next. Okay, fine. To me, it's just two different actors.
Yeah.
Because when you have 15 Draculas and 20 Wolfmans and 13 mummies all in the same house,
Yeah.
one dude scaring you 3 times. Ooh, I just think it's 3 different guys.
Yeah,
Like, it
you
doesn't,
can't
like,
tell the difference.
Like I should have to pay $100 and something to go on a tour to understand and appreciate the story more.
That it's the same one.
Now, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very happy that we went on that tour and I could get a better understanding of how the house works and how it functions and what the story works, how the story works. But it doesn't change how I feel about the house.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I want to like it. I really do. I
Yeah.
want to have a reason to be like, you know what, Seamus, you're wrong, idiot. No, I want to have a reason to say that, and I'm not getting one.
Yeah.
I again, I will concede that there have been a couple run throughs because I've done this house a ton of times, and the thing is, I keep doing this house because I want to have that moment where
Yeah,
I'm like,
oh,
shit,
here's the
I've been
triple,
wrong
yeah.
the whole time, but I've done it like 7-8 times now, and it's like it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want people to don't hate me. Please don't hate me, because this is just opinion. It's just my opinion. I can be wrong. It's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I struggle.
Yeah.
I struggle really hard with it. And again, no shade at the scare actors. I know you guys are trying real hard.
I mean, like we said
really
earlier,
awesome
these
with
ones
it.
are killing it. These are the
You
ones,
really are.
This is what's bringing the house so high up.
You
for
really
me
are.
now.
I mean, you guys are doing awesome because you have to. I think to really kind of be like, you were kind of put in a shitty situation.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're in the monster house. Oh, you mean the monster house where the Wolfman is going to Egypt because the vampire wants to control the amulet that's attached to the mummy, who's not even from the Mummy movie, from the Mummy Hand movie. Like, what? So, like, I get it. You guys have a lot to try to do, but I think you were set up to fail with this house, unfortunately. And again, that's just I have to reiterate this every single time I say it because people are gonna hate me for this, but I just think it's a rough house.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The craftsmanship is really well done, but other than that, and the scare actors, obviously, other than that, I'm not wild on it at all.
So let's jump over then to a house that you are pretty high on.
I am super high on this one.
The Weekend.
Yes.
So this house,
Still my favorite house.
I need to go through it more. I've only done it a couple times because of wait times.
That's the hard part with it. Is it's definitely a lot of weight to it,
Yeah. But it is a fun
it is still my favorite house.
Very scary. A lot scarier than I thought. Has some of
It is
the maybe not best scares, but some better
some
scares
better
than
scares
others.
than other houses.
And I think I don't know if I talked on or off air about this, but the music, because everybody knows it, I think it gives you that false sense of security.
Yes.
Which makes the scares that much
Especially
better.
if you're not an avid fan of The Weeknd. If you
And,
don't really
I still know the songs, and I don't
you don't know
listen
much
to 'em,
about
but I
them.
know the songs.
Right.
I think The Weeknd might be on my annual Halloween playlist now. Just like once we get to next year, I'm probably gonna have that, or even during the off season, I'll probably be like, oh, I'm sad, I miss Horror Nights, click, and I'll just be like, ooh, I remember this part of this. I remember this part. I think they fucking did it to me. They fucking,
told you they were going
They
to.
fucking tricked me.
Because this house is exactly what I wanted from it. My expectations were not exceeded, nor were they underwhelmed. I think that this house is exactly what I wanted it to be. I had really high expectations for it to begin with.
Yep.
But it is exactly what I wanted. It's a fever dream. There's very little understanding of what's going on, but it's one of those things where you don't need to have a deep story. Just know that this is the mindset that he may have been in when he was writing the songs.
Yeah.
Now, again, a lot of it's dramatized, and it's an excuse to take his music and make something wild out of it. And I think that's cool. This house could have sucked. I guess my point
It
is
could have gone off the rails
this
very
house could have
quickly.
been awful.
Yeah.
Even for me, who had high expectations for it, this house could have been the worst house of the year. And I think it's one of the best houses of the year.
Yeah.
I think in general, I think it's top half.
I
Easily.
definitely agree with that. I do enjoy this house a lot more than I thought, and I wasn't on that negative poo-poo train necessarily.
No, you weren't. You were just weren't sure what to make of it.
Yeah, I had. You said your expectations were kind of met. I was on the opposite end where I didn't have expectations, which you mentioned on a previous house. so mine were exceeded because I really
Right.
wasn't sure what I was getting signed up for with this house. But I do enjoy it. The song's catchy. I get it. The line is a vibe, as the kids
Yeah,
say.
it is.
But it is fun. The
And
scares work. It's gory. It's a lot gorier than I was expecting.
It is really gory. The scare actors are awesome.
Yep.
I don't think there's a bad scare actor in this. I mean, the only scare actor that I'm kind of like iffy on is the weird alien weekend one with the guys with the weird masks.
Oh, when he like licked the frog or something.
yeah,
Or,
like I think
that's just like
but it fits the story. It fits the theme of it. So
and that's like what they
it works
called.
for me.
They referred to us as the show scare. He's not there to scare. He's there to draw your attention. So
Right.
bam, you can get whacked from the other end.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I like the scenes where you're walking through and there's
I think
like the
it's-
party guests just kind of dancing, and
it
I
really
like
is. And-
the bathroom scene where they're cutting his head off, and
Yeah, I think for me, it's like it's just like his music videos, very much like his music. It's got a great mix of gory horror, but also like sexy vibes. It's
Yeah.
got that that definitely got that LA vibe, I guess you could put it, like that dirty, dank LA vibe.
Yep.
For anyone that's been to LA before, like it's glitz and glam, but at the same time, there's a seedy underbelly to it.
Yep.
And it feels like that whole thing just comes out in this house, and it works so well. It works so damn well. My favorite scene in this house is when you're walking through all those mirror room, and the lights
mirror
come
room,
down. If you catch it at the right time, when the music kind of picks up and the lights shut off, it's scary as fuck. At that point in the house, it's loud. It's disorienting. It's
the lighting is there. It's a very
just
fun house.
So off-putting, and in a good way. Like it's not like off-putting and weird. It's weird off-putting, but in a hard to explain good way.
Yeah.
It really is just amazing. It's just I don't know. I'm gonna keep speaking its praises, and I think partially it's because I think people were so down on it,
Yeah.
and the fact that it's a really good house, and people are gonna poo-poo and bitch about it regardless because they just hate the idea that he has a house at the event. To the point where I hope y'all are so pissed about it that they bring Billie Eilish back. Because fuck y'all.
All right, so
That's mean. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say that.
I think we both agree that 31 gets the nod between these two, or maybe not because you got Monsters a little bit lower. So where are you leaning towards?
You say that. I think just overall 30 is better.
With Beetlejuice and Hill
With
House?
Beetlejuice and Hill House.
Okay.
I love The Weeknd. Don't get me wrong, but I'm so down on
But
Monsters.
the other two averaged
I just
out
think
better.
that the other. I mean, you had. It's kind of like the first section of this discussion where we talked about Descendants and Bugs.
Yep.
I think that unfortunately, the two that it's going against were just good enough that The Weeknd can't pull it up by
itself.
He can't pull it up
For
by
you,
itself. For me, anyways. This is all opinion.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people may disagree with me, but I think that Beetlejuice was better than I expected, and Hill House was just Hill House. It was one of the best houses of that year. I just think that it just happens to be that I preferred. I went to that section specifically for both houses.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, if I can help it, I'm not doing Monsters again.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on the other side. I think 31 takes it. I think for the same reasons where you're kind of down on Monsters. I'm kind of down on Beetlejuice. Hill House, I think I like the best out of all of the four, but not enough to carry the other two. Whereas
I would agree with that.
The Weeknd and Monsters are
I think out of the four, Hill House is the best house.
Yeah.
But Weekend's a close second, and then Beetlejuice, and then obviously Monsters.
Yeah. So split on that little section. So we got two sections left. And I'll kind of divide them up by the front sound stages and the back sound stages. Number wise, I don't fucking know. So let's do. So we'll talk about the two that are always to the left of the tribute store. So at 30, we had Revenge of the Tooth Fairy and HHN Icons.
Yep.
And then now this year we have Fiesta de Chupacabras and Dead Man's Pier. Just quickly looking at 30, obviously with Tooth Fairy. I love Tooth Fairy, but I think because it was open for 2 years, essentially, I think people were a little bit down on it. I love Revenge of the Tooth Fairy, and it's funny too because I think like Tooth Fairy and Chupacabras are very similar, where it's like Tooth Fairy is the fairy tales, Chupacabras cryptids, it's like two different worlds, but it's just like a player in the big game of their area. I love Tooth Fairy.
I like Tooth Fairy. I think it was a.
And I think it got hurt a lot.
was a good house.
I think it got hurt a lot by
I think unfortunately
the protectors.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately it went up against some really good originals that year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably third or fourth in the list of originals. Whereas this year, I think Chupacabras might be one of the best originals.
It's
outside
up
of-
there.
Yeah,
That's for
plus
sure.
you have Dead Man's.
Yeah.
We'll get into Dead Man's,
Yeah.
but like you have that and Dead Man's. I just
Yep.
think that you can see where this conversation is going.
Yeah. So Fiesta, I really do enjoy. I love the whole like Latin county, like country. I love when you walk in and it's like the firecrackers and the story. The
Yeah.
one downfall for this house for me is the big fluffy Chupacabra puppets.
Really, you
So-
don't like those?
Half the time they're not moving. That's my thing. Is half the time I walk through and they don't do
Agreed.
anything. And even when they do, it's just kind of like
I feel
just
like
kind of very stationary and
Yeah.
very
So-
fakey and
where you're going with this, I feel like this house is very empty.
yeah. I feel like I don't get a lot of scares.
There's a lot
today.
of like almost like Beetlejuice effect,
Yep.
where it's like there's a lot of props, a lot of things to kind of look at,
Yeah.
and some cool things to look at, but there's not a lot of scare acting going on.
No.
You have a lot of like the townsfolk or the
Yeah.
village folk, but outside of them, the only monster is the puppets, and they don't move quite as much as they should.
Yeah.
You're right about that. I agree with that. Some of the best scares in this house are when the things just move on their own. When like the
Exactly.
when, like, the dumpster moves on itself.
Yeah, the
cages
chicken
move. Yeah.
coop. Yeah, and it feels like there's a couple instances in there where that's a thing. And I love the vibe of it. I do like that. I think the actual Chupacabras brought it down a little bit for me. And I do, like you said, like there's not a room in that house that like isn't beautiful and like fully like stocked, like all the bells and whistles. Like they got fucking firecrackers that sound and fog comes out. Like
Right.
banana stuff that like you wouldn't expect. Oh, that's a record. I think I said bananas twice.
You did say bananas twice.
I don't know why I like that word tonight, but it just feels like you got this big room and then there's like maybe one character in the room.
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
No, I agree.
I could have used a little bit more. So now moving up to the other two from 30, HHN Icons, or
And
Icons Captured,
and Piers.
I think was the tagline. Icons was a fun house. It was it's 30. Icons are a huge thing. I loved each little room was just so fun. The aspect of like going through at the end too to see like, ooh, who am I going to collect this time? Like
Yep.
Pokemon, got to catch them all.
Yep.
I really did like Icons. I don't think I went through as much as I should have. I feel like I was enamored by other things.
I think with
last year.
Icons, the interesting thing about going through multiple times is literally just to see the end. Who's
Yeah.
on the throne this time?
Yeah.
Because not a whole lot changed throughout the house. It was the same scenes every time, and not say that they're gonna change up the actual house itself, but at least with some of the houses, you notice how like scares change a little bit here and there.
Yeah,
Some things
they
are a
tweak
little
things,
different.
yeah.
Things tweak a little bit. This one is very much. It was you got the same scene every single time, and it was your favorite characters that you've seen
Yeah.
over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And it was a fine house.
And it was a room, like rooms didn't seem, just looking back and thinking I could be wrong, but like it seemed like rooms just had the character.
yeah,
It was like
yeah,
there
you're
wasn't
right.
the really like you go through a lot of houses now with rooms. Now we're back to a full year and there's like 3 scares coming at you, bang, bang, bang. This year it's like, or and Icons are like, oh, here's the
Here's
the usher.
Jack. Here's the
Jack.
usher.
Yeah,
Here's Chance. Yeah, that's kind of all it felt like, and I think it worked for what it was.
Yep.
But when you're going up against Dead Man's Pier, like
You're not gonna win.
you're not gonna win.
No
Like,
fucking chance.
There's no way it wins.
Yeah, Dead Man's Pier, beautiful, checks every little box
Dude,
I
there's
wanted.
really no reason to go into this other than the fact that it's amazing.
yeah,
and
so
the
I think we could
facades
just-
are awesome, and
I think we can give the W to 31.
yeah, 31 wins
So
pretty easily.
Chupacabras and Dead Man's versus or over Tooth Fairy and Icons. So now that last little strip, I think this is 3 from this year and 2 from last year.
Right.
Just because of the way they had it. So at 30, you had in the Jimmy Fallon area the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
Chainsaw, yep.
and up front you had Universal Monsters, Bride of Frankenstein Lives.
Yep.
Oh, we'll do 2 more things. So those 2
Yep.
versus we have Halloween in the Jimmy Fallon area,
Yep.
and then we have Spirits of the
Coven.
Coven
Yep.
up in that front spot. So we'll do 2 and 2 because we'll save. I forgot the Shrek Theater too. so
Shrek
we'll do
Theater
Shrek
was a house
oh.
last year.
So so just looking at those two then. So from going back to 30, Texas Chainsaw exceeded my expectations. My expectations were fairly
they
low.
They exceeded mine.
It was a fucking weird house. It was,
But I mean, like, you're right. Like, the expectations were so low, it really couldn't do anything but either be terrible, and I'd be like, see,
I liked
or
that
exceed them.
I liked that it was essentially a Texas Chainsaw Massacre series compilation because you had characters from 2, 1.
Yeah, it's kind of like a mashup
Yeah.
in a way.
So I liked that aspect where it broke it up because we've talked previously about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not my favorite movie, and it's just we've seen it before and similar comparisons now because we have Halloween in the same location.
Right.
But we're not big chainsaw people. It is what it is.
It's
at
just-
least this character, like, that's their thing in the movies. It's not just
Right.
like, hey, street people,
Well,
here's a
it
chainsaw.
fits his character, obviously, because he carries a chainsaw with him.
Yeah.
Even though in most of the movies, he kills, like, maybe one person with a chainsaw.
Yeah, he just like nicks them.
Like, he literally doesn't kill many people with a chainsaw, even though it's his signature weapon.
meat
which is
hooks and-
hilarious.
And
But
bludgeoned weapons.
regardless, it is what it was, I guess is my point. Like, it was okay. It was a serviceable house. I
Yeah.
thought they did a real good job putting all that stuff together. But much like Monsters, you had to kind of take a tour to kind of see every little thing that
Yeah.
they hid in there. Like, you didn't know, you would never have known that, like, the axe from The Shining was in there unless you took a tour.
Yeah. Or
And-
the jigsaw wheel or whatever. Or the pigs were from Saw House.
We're from the Saw House. So, like, again, don't get me wrong, it was better than what I expected. My expectations weren't very high to begin with.
Yeah.
And, you know, I enjoyed it for what it was. Now, it's going up against Halloween, which is my favorite horror movie of all time, or one of them. And I think that house is just that much better. There's really not much to talk about other than the fact that, like, this house is obviously more specifically about the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's very scene by scene of the
Yep.
original movie. They gave us everything that I thought was going to be in it,
Mhm.
and even some of the stuff that I didn't expect to be in it.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would get, like, all the crazy people milling about
Yeah.
outside of the insane asylum. Like, I didn't think we would get that.
No, that's not a scene I was expecting, but
I
I'm
didn't
very,
expect
very
that, but
glad
I'm happy
it was
that
there.
it was there.
Yeah, it's another great retelling of a great house and a great movie. I think it worked. I love the scene where it's like the mirror room again, which is what they did in The Weekend. So it's a fun, like, oh shit, where I gotta walk with
where
like
is
my
Michael?
hands out, like
Where's
where the
Michael
fuck am I
gonna be?
going?
Yep.
It was great. I get it. It's the and Michael with a knife. I
Yeah.
get it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoyed it. So and then let's go to 30 still. It's we got Universal Monsters. The Bride of Frankenstein lives over in that house. Again, another house that was open for 2 years essentially. A beautiful house. You want to talk
very
about
beautiful.
interior facades?
Very well done.
The actors in this house amazing. I think it's just our stance on the monsters where we're not like too. It's just not my
It's also one of
go-tos.
the. It's what I prefer Monsters House to be, though. Like,
Yeah.
I want it to be just give me a single monster. Don't
In
give me
focus,
this
yeah.
mashup shit. Just
Yeah.
give me one monster, and that's what they did. They gave us one monster.
Yeah.
Well, technically two.
Well,
but
they
it's
did the
same
Dracula
movie.
stuff, but it was the Dracula. Well, because they had the Dracula blood, and Dracula's brides, but it was such a
Sure,
sub story
but it was
that you
such a
didn't need to know
subset
it.
of- Right. The idea was it was the Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein himself, and I'd rather that.
Yeah,
So it was good for what it was. It was really well done, really pretty, very well built. The facade was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The outside of the facade, like the castle and stuff, I thought that was really cool. But I don't know.
yeah. So for me, it was just a fine house. I think that because I did it so many times that light, I didn't do it as much during the event, but I did enjoy the house. It was fun. So now, continuing to 31 in that area, we have Spirits of the Coven, which for me, I was a little let down by this house.
No, I'm not wild about it.
Yeah, I if they stuck
I think it's
solely
good.
to the like speakeasy like style vibe, it just got weird for me where it's like, okay, we start here and we kind of are going in a mine and now we're in like the ruins.
Yeah,
and,
it doesn't make a whole lot of sense story wise.
Yeah.
much like Monsters, doesn't make a whole lot of sense
Yeah.
story-wise.
Yeah, no, I think
I think
has
it
an
suffers
in-depth
from the
story.
same thing. I think, unfortunately, for Coven is that, it's witches.
Yeah,
And I think the theme works if they had stuck with it, like you were just saying. I think
Yeah.
if they had stuck with the 20s theme
just give me an all 20s speakeasy
all the
house.
way through it.
That's fine. Yep.
It gets kind of weird at the end.
Yeah.
Very, like, Scarlet Witchy.
I mean, like,
type stuff.
we're
The runes
we're
and things.
starting outside of like a speakeasy, going into a guy playing piano, and we end with like witches and ruins, and like I get it, that's the lore and like part of the story, but it is tough to translate through. And it's a fun house, and there's a lot of tricks in there that I do enjoy.
It seems like we're kind of just like meh. on
It's
it.
fine.
Like,
Yeah, it's a fine house.
for what it is. It's not like what Boris House did, where it was like you kind of expected that,
Yeah,
but it really did kind of blow us away.
yeah,
This one, I felt like there was a chance that it could,
yeah.
but it just didn't. And it works for what it is. I think it's very mid tier,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely doesn't do anything outrageous.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me go, wow, I got to do that house again.
So this one's gonna be tough then. So who takes this cake? 30 with Chainsaw and Universal Monsters Brides.
I think for me personally, it's
Yeah.
got to be this year, just because Halloween.
Halloween.
is that much of it. It's kind of like how you were with like the Hill House and
Yeah,
Peters
yeah.
and stuff, where it's like that one house kind of just carries it for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that Halloween and Coven, I'd rather those two than
Yeah.
Texas and Frankenstein.
So it's tough for me. So I'm looking at it as like I like Monsters more than Spirit. And I like Halloween more than Chainsaw, but I think I like Chainsaw more than Spirits.
okay.
So I think I would have it as like Halloween
you
1.
can stalemate it like you did with the Scare Zones.
Yeah, I know. I just make up my own rules. No, I will take 30.
Wow, okay.
Because I think I have Halloween at 1,
Yep.
but I think I have Brides at 2,
Texas
Chainsaw
at
at 3,
three, and then
Spirits at
Coven's at
4.
four.
So I think it ends
Okay.
up
I see that.
beating
Yeah.
it out
I
just
can
by
see
a
that.
hair. So now to our last battle. We have the Case Files
Yep.
at the now defunct Trek Theater going against Hellblock Horror, which is in one of those sound stages as well.
Yep.
So this is a fun one because these were both we paired these up well because these are both
Yeah.
replacement houses.
Yeah, they were.
They were both last minute additions. They were both
Yep.
thrown together. So they're kind of playing from the same playing field there. And going into them, it was just like a compilation style of what the fuck. Case Files being Boris Schuster and his and all that stuff, just all the different little monsters and aspects of it. Hellblock, again, all these different various monsters in this little super, official, super powered prison cell. Case Files just held a special place in my heart.
Look, it's for me. It's simple.
Yeah,
They're both replacement houses put together last minute. Which house is better?
yeah, Case Files. Yep.
And again, Case Files. Zero expectations because I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Had literally no idea what this was going to be.
Yeah,
and
the
obviously
legendary
with
truth stuff.
Cellblock kind of the same thing. Hellblock kind of the same thing, but I feel like with Hellblock you kind of got the idea what's going to be a prison cell, very basic. Could it be something with having to do with scary? I feel like if they had kind of like done, how like I forget what the actual prison is called because I'm not a scary expert, but that very last scene in the scary house last year. I felt like if they had done an extension of that
Yep.
for Hellblock, I feel like it would be closer.
Yeah.
But because Hellblock is literally just a big, like intergalactic, interdimensional
Yeah, look at these
prison
monsters from previous.
with all these
and-
different monsters from previous houses, they didn't put as much effort for me
Yeah.
into that than they did with Case Files. And Case Files, it was so much better than I expected.
And at least like they were last minute replacements, but at least I think Case Files had that year.
They had a more
Hellblock
obviously
had
they had more
a
time.
couple
So
months, I'm sure.
So you're right. So
But they still were replacement houses. They still were like
right.
shit.
So
what
to
do we
be
do?
fair, you're right. They had more time with Case Files to develop a story and build things for it and build costumes for it. Whereas this one was like, hey, you've got like 2 months, figure something out.
Yeah.
So I get that part of it.
But I still give it
think
to Case
unfortunately you have to look at that.
Yeah.
And you have to say that Case Files, if we're comparing the two, is just a much better house.
Yeah.
I think with Hellblock, for what they had, for what time they had,
Mm-hmm.
tons of props because they to throw together a house to give us 10 houses like that.
Yeah.
I mean, good on them because that was an amazing feat to begin with. They could have easily been like, we don't
Sorry,
have 10
you get 9 houses,
Sorry,
yeah.
you get 9 houses. Deal with it. And they didn't do that. So I think that gives it a ton of brownie points. But I think, unfortunately, just comparing the 2 houses, I gotta go with Case Files.
Yeah, I'm same boat. Case Files. I like Hellblock. It is fun. The characters in there are kind of doing what Monsters is doing. They're kind of carrying it for the
100%.
house. But I still Case Files. That was just such a
I
fun
loved the
house.
theme of it. It was super fun. I like how they tied in the Kitty Cat Club to it.
Yeah.
I loved what they did with that house.
That was just
I really did. Just love what they did with it.
that was fun. So that's our kind of complete rundown. I didn't keep track. I'm not scoring this. I wasn't
there's
seeing
no
who
scoring
won
here.
what, who won
guess
this. So I guess the last question would be overall.
Yeah, I was gonna say the final question would be like overall. Do you prefer this event to last year, or do you prefer last year to this year?
This is tough.
It's a hard question to answer.
So for me,
and it would be easy to cheat and say, well, it's a toss-up.
yeah. So for me, I think shows it's split. I think Scare Zones 31 takes it by a landslide.
A fucking country mile.
I think Houses at 31. I think it's fairly. I think the difference between, in personal opinion, my own opinion, Dead Man's Pier, the number 1. I think there's a bigger gap between the other houses than there was at 30. I think the top 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 were all very close.
Yeah.
Whereas I think
more
there's
people,
clear cut number 1s
yeah,
this
and
year.
I think more people would side with you on that.
Yeah.
I think fewer people side with me because I think that it's closer between 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah.
I still think Pier is the better house.
Yeah.
But I think Weekend is really
Close for
nipping
you.
at its heels as far as personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to make a decision of do I prefer last year's event to this year's event. I think for me, it's just going solely based on the idea that this year is a full running event.
Yeah.
There's no plastic. There's no, hey, we have to have COVID things in place.
Yep.
It's just, this is this year's event compared
Mm-hmm.
to last year. I think even if it's by a hair,
Yep.
it's this year over last year for me.
This sucks. I
mean,
think I'm the opposite.
It means nothing.
Yeah,
really,
no,
in the
I know.
grand
It
scheme
really
of
doesn't mean
things,
anything.
But
I think I might be opposite because
Yeah.
I love the Scare Zones this year so much, but having a Cary, Ohio house, which was a little bit of a letdown, but it was still there and it was still fun. But having Wicked Growth and Puppet Theater and Case Files, the Bride's house was fun in its own, and Icons. I think I would just lean towards 30 because I do value the houses a little bit more than the Scare Zones. But these Scare Zones are making me fall more in love with Scare Zones, which I think right there gives me my answer. This year, if I'm enjoying the Scare Zones as much or more than the houses, I think the previous year should win on that. But that's just me.
yeah, I can see people's arguments to that. I still think the houses this year, for the most part, are better.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it really is kind of comparable. I mean, to the sense that like there are just good houses this year, good houses last year, bad houses this year, bad houses last year. I don't think there's a massive gap.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if I looked at just solely houses, does the Weekend and Dead Man's hold enough water compared to Puppet and
Pumpkin.
Wicked Growth?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Um,
But like with also too, it's like, so if you take those top 2 off, then you're left with like
right.
Case Files,
Correct.
Carrie,
Yeah,
Haunting
yeah,
a
yeah.
Hill House battling it out against, for
me, I think Chupacabras
is strong
is
enough.
strong enough to be that Case Files.
Yep.
I really do. Like, I know that it feels a little empty, but I love how well it's done.
Yep.
I think Monsters drags this year down a little bit. But saying that, I think the Scare Actors do a great enough job that it brings it up.
Gives it a little bit of leverage,
Gives it
yep.
a boost. Yeah, it's hard. This is why this question really means nothing because I think both years were done really well. They did what they could with last year.
Yeah.
And
They
this
made
year,
the best out of a bad
and
situation.
this year they did everything they could to make a great 31 event. I think that they could have gone harder into the October 31st, 31 Halloween.
Yes. Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I don't think they didn't do it enough.
Yeah.
I think this, the whole place is covered in pumpkin lord vines,
Yeah.
but he's like really non-existent at this event outside of him being right up front. There's no real pumpkin
Yeah.
lord anywhere else outside of him
No,
himself
yeah,
up
no.
front, and I think that hurts this year a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see where people
As a
feel,
missed opportunity.
well, I
like-
feel like that's where I agree with a lot of people when they say it feels disjointed. It feels a little jilted.
it was
in a
there
way.
for them to like, the layup was there and they just,
And they kind of dropped
Didn't-
the ball a little bit on
Yeah.
that. So I agree with people on that, but I also don't feel like this event is boring.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going kind of too far in saying that, like, this event feels just super, like, not put together.
yeah, I don't think super,
And
but
I
I
don't
think
agree
there
with
was
that.
a missed.
But I do feel like there are some missed opportunities. I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot more they could have done with it,
Mhm.
and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, so that's it. Let us know what you think. Do you prefer 30 or 31? I mean, we were pretty split on a lot of stuff, so I'm be very curious to hear everyone's opinions on that.
Yeah.
We
be
will. So next week, next Friday will be the first Friday show of no HHN.
This is true.
So we are going to be doing our second annual Fear and Beer HHN Awards show. We threw this together a little last minute, so we're going to be reaching out to some people. You might hear some familiar voices. You might hear some new voices. We're going to try and get the fans involved. We are going to be putting out, I'll put it out today with the episode, an online survey, a little 5 questionnaire, favorite house, favorite scare zone, stuff like that. And we'll have a little section of our awards show that is directly voted on by the fans. So these votes will be yours. The awards we give out will be ours. And we might have some special presenters.
Yeah.
We had some people pop on
We've
last
done it
year.
before.
So we'll
We got
reach
some
out. We got
friends.
some people and we'll see what we do. So we're gonna have fun with this again. I'm excited to. I'm not excited to wrap up the season,
I'm
but
not
I am
ready for it to be over yet.
but I'm excited to like get back into like another cycle. Like I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like
yeah.
32 predictions, stuff like it's just such a fun time. And like once August rolls around, I'm like, I'm ready for anything. I'm gonna run through a brick wall. And then like middle of October comes around and I got like bags under my eyes. I'm just like, water.
A lot of late nights, a lot of
water.
Pumpkinhead. Yeah, it's
But it's fun. This is what we live for.
hey, this is my favorite time of year.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Nick.
And this is the Monsters hater, Seamus.
Happy Hans.
Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.